In the quiet moments after Fajr, when the world is still wrapped in the softness of dawn and the sky slowly turns from darkness to light, something extraordinary happens. The heart is calm, distractions are silent, and the soul is closest to its creator. These early moments are not ordinary minutes in a day, they are doors through which mercy, peace, and unimaginable blessings can enter a person's life. Many people spend their days chasing wealth, worrying about bills, fearing the future, and constantly asking, how will my needs be met? Yet the truth is far more beautiful and far more powerful than we realize. Imagine waking before the sun rises, standing in prayer while the world sleeps, and then sitting quietly after Fajr with a heart that whispers remembrance instead of worry. In those moments, you are not simply repeating words, you are planting seeds, seeds of trust, seeds of reliance, seeds that grow into barakah in ways the mind cannot calculate. Wealth in Islam has never been limited to numbers in a bank account. Real wealth is peace in the heart, sufficiency in life, and the quiet certainty that Allah will always provide what you need at the perfect time. There was a time when I remember feeling overwhelmed by responsibilities and uncertainty. Like many people, I thought the solution was to keep asking, to keep searching, to keep trying harder and harder to control the future. But slowly I learned that the most powerful shift happens when the heart stops begging in desperation and starts remembering in certainty. A simple act of dhikr, repeated sincerely, can transform the way a person sees the world. What once looked like scarcity begins to reveal hidden abundance. Think about how often we rush through mornings. Phones light up, worries start piling up, and the mind begins calculating problems before the sun has even fully risen. Yet the believer is given a secret moment before all of that begins. A sacred pause after Fajr, where heaven feels close and the heart is ready to receive. In that quiet pause, repeating a small phrase just a few times may seem simple, almost insignificant. But when those words rise from a heart filled with belief, they carry a weight that can move mountains of difficulty. Across generations, people who held tightly to these small but powerful acts of remembrance noticed something remarkable. Doors began opening. Opportunities appeared unexpectedly. Stress slowly melted into contentment. Provision arrived from places they never imagined. Not because the words themselves are magic, but because remembrance reconnects the heart to the one who controls all provision. This message today is not just about a phrase or a routine. It is about rediscovering a forgotten secret of the believer's life, that abundance does not come from endless striving alone, but from sincere connection with Allah in the moments when the world is silent. The habit you build after Fajr can shape the entire direction of your day, and sometimes the direction of your life. So imagine starting tomorrow differently. The prayer ends, the sky begins to glow with the first light of dawn, and instead of rushing away, you stay seated for a few moments. Your tongue moves gently with remembrance. Your heart breathes with trust, and with every repetition, you are not just speaking words. You are opening doors of barakah that only Allah can unlock. Because sometimes the greatest transformation in wealth, peace, and provision begins with something beautifully simple, a few sincere moments with Allah at the start of the day. Before the world fully awakens, there exists a moment that many people overlook, a quiet space between night and day that carries a unique serenity. The moments after Fajr are unlike any other time. The air feels calmer, the noise of daily life has not yet begun, and the heart is naturally softer. In this stillness, a believer sits after prayer, feeling the gentle rhythm of the morning and sensing a closeness to Allah that is difficult to describe. While most of the world is still asleep, the one who remains in remembrance experiences a kind of spiritual clarity that rarely appears during the busy hours of the day. These early minutes hold a hidden power because the mind is not yet crowded with worries, notifications, conversations, and responsibilities. The soul is awake, yet the chaos of life has not arrived. When a person sits quietly after Fajr, whispering remembrance with sincerity, it becomes more than a routine act. It becomes a moment of connection, a sacred pause where the heart can realign itself with trust and gratitude. The darkness of night slowly fades, and the first light spreads across the sky, reminding the believer that every new day carries fresh mercy and unseen opportunities. Many people rush away immediately after prayer, stepping back into the cycle of tasks and anxieties, unaware that they are leaving behind a treasure hidden in those peaceful minutes. The believer who understands the value of this time treats it as a gift, a daily appointment with the one who controls every provision and every blessing. Sitting quietly, breathing slowly, and repeating words of remembrance allows the heart to settle, the mind to clear, and the soul to feel grounded in faith. In those calm moments, the believer is not chasing the world, not calculating problems, not worrying about tomorrow, simply present, remembering, trusting, and allowing the light of the morning to fill both the sky and the heart, letting faith gently replace fear and restlessness, letting the quiet remembrance settle deep within the soul. As the day begins to unfold around it, many people spend their lives constantly asking for more. More money, more opportunities, more security, more control over the future. Their prayers become lists of requests, their thoughts filled with calculations about how and when their needs will be fulfilled. While asking Allah is a beautiful act of worship, there is a deeper truth that many hearts forget. True wealth does not begin with what you ask for. It begins with the level of trust you carry within your heart. When trust becomes strong, anxiety slowly fades, and the constant pressure to control every outcome begins to disappear. A heart that truly trusts Allah understands that provision was never created by human effort alone. Jobs, businesses, salaries, and opportunities are only means placed in the world, but the source of every blessing remains in the hands of Allah. When someone believes this deeply, their relationship with wealth changes. They no longer live in fear of losing what they have, and they no longer feel desperate when something is delayed. Instead, they move through life with a quiet certainty that what is meant for them will arrive at the right moment, in the right way, and with the right amount of blessing. Think about how often worry steals peace from people's hearts. Someone checks their bank balance and feels fear. Another compares their life to others and feels behind. Another lies awake at night calculating bills, responsibilities, and uncertainties. Yet the believer who strengthens their trust begins to see these situations differently. They recognize that the one who provided yesterday is fully capable of providing tomorrow. The one who created the heavens and the earth does not forget the needs of a sincere servant. When this understanding settles deeply into the heart, the endless cycle of worry begins to soften. The believer still works, still plans, still strives with effort and responsibility, but the heart is no longer chained to fear, no longer restless with desperation, moving through each day with reliance, patience, gratitude, and a quiet confidence that Allah's provision never fails and His generosity never runs dry. Sometimes the most powerful transformations in life begin with something incredibly simple, something so small that many people underestimate its impact. A few sincere words spoken with presence of heart can carry a weight far greater than long speeches or complicated routines. When a believer repeats a short phrase of remembrance with sincerity, it slowly reshapes the heart from within. The tongue moves gently, but the effect reaches deep into the soul, polishing the heart in ways that are not always immediately visible. Many people assume that change must come through large actions or dramatic efforts, yet spiritual change often begins with quiet consistency. A phrase repeated several times each morning may appear ordinary, but when those words carry meaning, gratitude, and belief, they begin to soften the worries that sit heavily on the heart. Each repetition becomes a reminder that the believer is not alone in their struggles, not abandoned in their uncertainty, not responsible for controlling every outcome in life. Over time, the heart begins to feel lighter. The same problems may still exist, the same responsibilities may still be present, but the way the believer experiences them begins to shift. Anxiety slowly gives way to calmness, impatience begins to transform into patience, and fear quietly steps aside to make room for trust. Words of remembrance are not simply sounds spoken into the air, they are acts of devotion that strengthen the connection between the servant and the Creator. The beauty of such a phrase lies in its simplicity. It does not require wealth, special knowledge, or extraordinary circumstances. Anyone can sit quietly after prayer, close their eyes for a moment, and allow the tongue to move with remembrance. In that calm repetition, the heart begins to absorb meaning, the soul begins to breathe with faith, and the believer slowly realizes that the greatest transformation does not come from complexity, but from sincerity, consistency, and a heart fully present with Allah in those quiet moments of remembrance throughout life. Many people experience moments when provision appears in ways they never expected. A door opens just when everything seemed closed. Help arrives at the exact moment when hope was fading. An opportunity appears from a place that never even crossed the mind. When believers look back on these moments, they often realize that these blessings did not come purely from their own planning or effort. They came after patience, after trust, and after turning their hearts sincerely toward Allah. There are countless stories of individuals who once carried heavy anxiety about their future. Some worried constantly about providing for their families, others feared losing stability, and many felt overwhelmed by responsibilities that seemed larger than their abilities. Yet when these people strengthened their reliance on Allah and filled their mornings with remembrance instead of worry, something remarkable began to shift inside them. Their hearts grew calmer, their perspective changed, and slowly their lives began to reflect that inner transformation. One person might recall losing a job and feeling as though the ground beneath their feet had disappeared. Days passed with uncertainty, yet instead of drowning in fear, they held tightly to faith and continued remembering Allah each morning. Unexpectedly, a new opportunity appeared, one that provided not only income, but also peace and balance that had been missing before. Another person might remember struggling financially for years, constantly feeling behind, until they developed the habit of beginning their mornings with sincere remembrance. Over time, they began to notice small but meaningful changes. Debts becoming easier to manage, opportunities arriving at the right moment, unexpected generosity from people around them. These stories are not simply about material wealth. They are reminders that when a heart replaces anxiety with faith, life begins to unfold differently. The believer continues to work and strive, but the heart moves through each challenge with patience and reliance, witnessing moments of provision that feel almost impossible to predict, blessings arriving quietly, gently, and sometimes in ways that leave the believer standing in awe of Allah's perfect timing and limitless generosity. Every meaningful change in life begins with a small decision, a quiet moment when a person chooses a new direction. Habits shape the rhythm of our days, and the way we begin each morning often determines the tone of everything that follows. Some people start their mornings in a rush, reaching for their phones, filling their minds with worries, comparisons, and endless lists of responsibilities. Before the day has even properly begun, the heart is already heavy with pressure and distraction. Yet the believer is given an opportunity to begin differently, to build a habit that centers the heart before the world begins to pull it in every direction. Imagine waking each morning knowing that the first moments after Fajr are not just routine minutes, but a personal meeting with peace and remembrance. Instead of standing up immediately and returning to the noise of life, you remain seated for a short while. The world outside is still quiet, the sky slowly brightening with the soft colors of dawn, and your tongue begins to move gently with words of remembrance. In those few minutes, you are choosing faith over fear, calmness over anxiety, and trust over constant worry. This daily habit may appear small at first, almost too simple to create real change. Yet consistency carries a quiet power. When something is repeated every day with sincerity, it begins to reshape the heart little by little. The believer who protects these moments after Fajr begins to notice subtle shifts in their life. The mind feels clearer, patience becomes stronger, and worries lose some of their weight. A sense of barakah begins to touch ordinary moments throughout the day. The invitation is simple but powerful. Begin tomorrow with intention. Guard those peaceful minutes after prayer. Allow remembrance to settle deeply within your heart and commit to returning to that moment every morning with sincerity, hope, and trust in Allah's endless generosity and mercy.